Now with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Mike Blumenthal, co-founder of GatherUp and Local U.
So Mike's in the house, and thanks for joining us with episode 325 of Edge of the Web. I'm your host, again, Aaron Sparks, founder and CEO of Site Strategics. If you're new to the show, we are blessed to be able to have some interviews with some great digital marketing minds in the biz. Always a great learning opportunity for us. I'd like to introduce our guest again, Mike Blumenthal. He's the co-founder of GatherUp, Local U, the godfather of local search. Let's let our audience know about Mike here. Mike was actually the founding partner. Let's speak today. How about that? He's the founding partner of GatherUp, which is a computer software that helps businesses provide better customer experience through customer reviews and feedback. Mike also has co-founded Local U, where he works on weekly podcasts and newsletters to help plan conferences and moderate the forums. Mike's actively publishing content on his own personal blog, industry websites, at conferences, and on social media. And here's a fun fact. His actual nickname is Professor Maps. Now, Mike, how'd you get that Professor Maps moniker there?
So Mike Ramsey, early participant with Local U, saw me presenting at a Local U, thought I was too much like a professor, and I'm not sure the name was given with affection.
But you embraced it, and it's a good thing.
I embraced it, right. So we don't know if it's because I know so much about Google or because I'm so pedantic. to be determined.
We'll go for the former, not the latter. How about that? So, Mike,
I'm okay with either or both.
Well, Mike, you've certainly been a great influencer in local search for a very long time, and I'd like to hear your own personal take on your history, because we got the professional bio there. We know what you're doing right now, but how'd you get into this spot you are with local search and being able to be such an authority of the matter?
I returned from my travels to Africa and Alaska as a mountain guide to try to reconcile with my family. Early 1980s, started a computer store, Apple, Compaq, etc. Mm-hmm. And towards the end of that, got into the web and built a content management system, year 2000, that would allow local area businesses to manage their web presence more easily. Mm-hmm. Became clear then that they needed to do well in Google, even though there was no such thing as local. When Google Local came out in 2005, I was excited because in my market, I needed 9 yellow page books to be able to address my market. And with one fell swoop, I was able to do prospecting and throw away the 9 yellow page books together. And I, at that point, predicted the demise of the yellow pages. And I couldn't understand why nobody at the time was writing about local, because I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Absolutely.
I started writing on my blog 2006, September. So it's been 13 years this month. And I didn't even get a job in local. I was mired in my local marketplace, selling websites, doing web hosting, until 2011. After I'd started Local U, I started getting business. And in the space, I became a local search consultant. And very quickly, within the next year or two, it sort of took over my life. I'd been writing about it at that time for 6 years. So.
Oh, very good. Very good. So it certainly has exploded. And it's a huge area that's valuable for small businesses around the world. And Google's certainly creating this platform for us to be able to launch from and be able to engage with customers. But I got to ask, before anything else, why do they still send yellow pages to businesses? Why? I mean, they're showing up. These books are there, and what do we do with them?
Yeah, I looked at, every year I track how many pages are in my local yellow page book, and it's asymptotically approaching 0. I don't know when they're going to stop them, but you see national ads for hearing aids and stuff, right? And you see lawyer ads. So I guess lawyers and hearing aid companies find them valuable.
They're just keeping the yellow pages afloat just with those ginormous ads. Hey, more power to them, I guess. But they turn into be a doorstop for us over here. All right, so. I don't want to trash the industry, but, come on, people. All right, so back to local search. There's so many things that are changing, and I want to be able to unpack a lot of this. We've got a lot of questions as well. Local SEO for an important take. Is that a misnomer, local SEO?
To me, it represents the fact that Google, particularly since the advent of the phone, but even before that, was trying to deliver super localized results.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different algorithm somewhat than the purely results that are reflected in the organic results. It really is the beginning of the sort of zero-click results, and that you now see much more commonly. So in local, we've been experiencing it for years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it is a misnomer. I mean, maybe it is in the sense that SEO is a misnomer.
Right.
And really it's about local marketing rather than search engine optimization. But other than that, it serves the purpose of explaining the experience of local searches.
Right, that's where I was going. Explain to our listeners, what is that zero-click concept for us?
So Google over the years is trying to deliver answers to users. And in local, they're trying to deliver more and more information so the user can get the answer immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the answer isn't immediately available, quickly available, preferably from their point of view on Google.
Mm-hmm.
So Google is answering more and more questions directly there. And in local, this has long been the case where a user could go and find most of what they need about a business without having to visit the website of the business. So we're seeing in the space where 70-80% of the incoming leads are occurring on the front page of Google as opposed to elsewhere, either in the ecosystem or on the website.
So it's an incredible platform, an incredible environment. I mean, the knowledge panel has originated out of this concept, and the business profile, obviously, for any organization is right there in plain view. And there's so many additional factors and in calls to action, and well, I shouldn't say call to action. They're engagement tools that Google's offering now, and it keeps on evolving. I've got up with your blog here the last few days, and they're changing the architecture of icons on the map to be able to be more engaging. There's constant nuanced changes in this platform, and it's all predominantly mobile focused, is it not?
It's all mobile first, and it's all the new developments we're seeing are coming out first in mobile. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing is, when you say calls to action, it goes beyond that. I mean, Google's stated goal at the last conference was to answer users, solve problems for users, and beyond just answering their questions. And what we're seeing is a whole development of a range of transactional capabilities.
Right.
Get a quote, reserve a table, reserve sitting at the spa, book a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
These are all transactional things that are occurring directly on the front page of Google without users needing to go to online travel companies or to go directly to the spa site to make a reservation. So it's becoming very transactional.
Absolutely. And that actually raises up a little bit of a concern that we've had on the show before, but there is a faction of professionals that don't really like Google getting in the way of our customer or our own sites, that Google's kind of insisting upon itself to be able to answer the questions, but they're also the businesses that have been cultivating their website over years to be able to be that answer, they're getting kind of removed out of the equation a little bit. At least there's a sentiment of that. What's your thoughts about that real estate, that enlarging of the real estate that Google has there?
Well, my thought is that a lead's a lead. I don't really care where they come from. And if Google's prepared to deliver them at low cost, mm-hmm. I'm all in. I don't care whether they come from my website or they come from the front page of Google. Right. And that's been the case in local for years. To some extent, the website has become a data feed to Google, right? Google relies on it very heavily to populate the knowledge panel. So you're providing them that data through your website.
Yep.
If you're in a more complicated business, people are going to go to Google, see what things look like, and then move on to your website to get more answers. But that number has been been declining dramatically over the last 3 or 4 years because the experience on mobile is so dramatically different, and mm-hmm. Google has worked so hard at answering these questions.
I couldn't say it better. A lead is a lead. And Google is grabbing feeds from a number of different places, not only the website in question or the business's website in question. So a couple of years ago, you ran an experiment on Yelp on creating some fake rankings to be able to see if that actually directly affected rankings on some of the sites that were ranking locally. I know that's kind of an old study, but it actually ties into another question I've got. What was that experiment? How did it actually play out?
So at the time, I was exploring what were called the one pack results, where only a single business would show in the result instead of a three pack.
Right.
And typically they occurred in areas where Google didn't have a direct category themselves. So they were clearly getting the information from someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
On about 30 or 40% of them, I saw that there was high ranking Yelp listings for those businesses. And so I did an experiment to see if there was a correlation or causation between Yelp and the pack results. So I had 6 or 7 friends leave some reviews on a local bar. And the bar was a perfect case study because the only website they had was some sort of community website. And they had a PDF up there with no text. They didn't have any website. They had no links. They had nothing. Mm-hmm. And with reviews on a targeted phrase, Yelp then anointed that business as a top 10 business in dive bars.
Got it.
The Yelp page surfaced in the organic results fairly quickly, and the Yelp that drove within a few days a local pack from Google. So we were able to see directly that a page that Yelp throws prominence to through their various doorway pages, if it has enough reviews on a given topic, can then drive Google local results.
And how long did that actually stay in place?
To this day.
Oh my gosh.
And not only that, but now they've become, quote unquote, one of the best bars in Olean. And they still only have a PDF for a website.
Oh my Lord.
What happened was once a few reviews started coming in on Yelp, people felt free to review them. They had no reviews on Google at the time. They now have a ton of reviews on Yelp, a ton of reviews on Google, and they've been able to maintain themselves and move beyond the limited categories of dive bars and sports bars that I was experimenting in to literally becoming one of the best, quote unquote, best bars in Olean, because the review volume then picked up. People were, that you have to sort of grease the skids. If there are no reviews, people don't want to be the first.
Right.
But when those appeared, they started getting them left, right, and center.
So reviews are absolutely a factor of local optimization for small, medium, and large businesses. I want to get into a number of factors that affect the performance of any local review. But I did want to come across a quick mention. Joy Hawkins just released a Whiteboard Friday on Moz, where she gave you a great shout out, and she kind of broke out the recipe or the formula for local optimization. Was talking about proximity, talking about prominence, and talking about relevance. And in that space, you have been a huge advocate of reputation as a factor of local rankings. And with what we were just talking about before, Google picking up feeds from other areas outside of the website, what would you say the proportion of factors that play into local optimization now is? If you're looking at your site being one of those factors, is a good deal of this now completely off site that you have to manage your brand as well as reviews and citations?
So there's the tactical side of it, which is not as interesting to me as the strategic side of it, as you know.
Sure.
On the tactical side, Google, starting in 2016, there was this development called Reviews from the Web, and where they show in the business profile as up to 3 pages of review sites about your business. They don't show Yelp or TripAdvisor, Better Business Bureau, but any other, up to 3. And at that point, they elevated on a brand search. So if you typed in your business plus city, on that brand search, any page that had reviews got elevated in the search results. And those pages would then show in your business profile. So what happened is that elevation of reputation on the part of Google to give people a quick snapshot of the fact that maybe they have 5 stars here and 4 stars there and 4.5 elsewhere and do whatever,
right.
That quick snapshot became really where people go for review information. And more important than the ranking impact was the impact it had on conversion. So when you get to Google, and you see that a business, you're doing a little research, and you see that a business has a consistent brand story, not just at Google, but at Yelp and at their own website and at Wedding Wire and The Knot and all these other places, Facebook, that increases conversions dramatically. So to me, the conversion story is more interesting than the tactical story of review impacting rank. But the other side of it is, from a tactical point of view, is that when you read the most recent patents, I wrote about this at GatherUp, analyzing user reviews to determine entity attributes. Google says that they'll gather reviews from blogs, social network postings, emails, God forbid which email they're reading, articles written for websites or for printed publications such as magazines, postings, and the last item they mention are postings made to a user review section of an online vendor. So Google looks everywhere for reviews. So when you're looking at it from a tactical point of view, as a long haul thing, it's not a one done enterprise. Reputation is one of these ongoing things you have to deal with forever. You need to think about the fact that Google's willing to show up to 3 there, plus more in the organic results. You, over time, should be working on all of them, including your own site, and maximize conversions. But also, I believe that Google is gaining entity information from these first and third party reviews at Google and other sites. So
yeah. And they're getting further information, not only from the reviews, but citations and other feeds of content. And you just wrote on another blog here just recently, you gave a snapshot of SeaWorld in Orlando. Okay, so in that respect, that was interesting because I want to talk about events here in a second, but they had a listing of events of SeaWorld, and right smack dab in the middle of that was a protest event. Well, I doubt that SeaWorld actually was putting that on their calendar, so there's an aggregate of this content making its way into that Google Knowledge Panel. That's part of reputation that you're talking about right here.
Exactly.
And
and it's the page that's the most seen by users is that page. Even if they end up going to your website, they typically are stopping either the beginning, middle, or end of their search at Google to assess and choose between your business and another. So everything that's there that contributes to reputation is important. That's everything from the photos to the reviews to the events to the reviews at your site, third-party sites. All of that creates what I call a brand story at Google for these businesses. And that to me is something you have control over and something that is interesting.
You have control over it by your reputation, but I mean, just let me pause here for a second. This is a little bit scary if Google's actually deciding what content, not just how it actually ranks you in kind of a back channel algorithm, but it's actually presenting content that could be of detriment to you, especially if we're getting into the elections of 2020, right? There's Google starting to pull together content that it sees as valuable to its customers, not particularly valuable to the brand that's ranking. Could you comment on that?
Sure. I mean, since reviews have come out, the power has shifted somewhat. Consumers now have an active voice in defining your brand. And you can either choose to let them define it or you can choose to participate in that conversation and define it with them. Those are the choices. Ignoring it is no longer a choice.
Absolutely.
Getting angry about it isn't very productive, So the only path forward in this is acceptance, and acceptance means engaging with this productively, and it includes improving your business, because sooner or later it's not just about getting more reviews, it's about getting reviews that you've earned because you're running a good business. So that, which is the end logic here, is that reviews aren't a tactic, they're a strategy, and they're an insight into how your business is doing as perceived by people beyond your business, and that's incredibly valuable information.
Absolutely. You almost borderlined the phrase "resistance is futile," and we're all going to be part of the Borg here.
Well, but it isn't that bad. I mean, the reality is that you can engage with your customers more effectively and thoroughly. You can be the first line to ask them what they think.
There you go.
You can improve. Those are all process-driven things that you can do that will drive your presence on Google, and be sure that your brand story is a consistent one across all the places that Google's looking.
that insists that the brand needs to be prepared for that type of manpower, that type of engagement, and
Right.
observation. If you're not paying attention, if you don't have a tool that's actually showing you what's happening on your own brand, if you're only just going to Google for a bit of a ping against your own brand, you're really not seeing the entire picture, because Google is scraping these different sites. They're pulling this content together. You really do need to be watching that closely in order to be able to engage effectively, right?
Well, it's why I got into the tool business, I guess. I just thought when I first started with GatherUp, businesses were very afraid of engaging in the world of reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to give them a tool that sort of at least allowed them to participate in the conversation on a more even playing field. So which is why we started GatherUp in the first place, was to give them those tools. Mm-hmm. And it has evolved into a tool that allows you to look at your reviews in terms of understanding what's going wrong with your business, in terms of developing keyword strategies, because you can see what's going right with your business. It can be used for management decisions as well as marketing. So the beauty of a review isn't just that review. It's the reviews in aggregate can be used across management and marketing to really benefit your business. So, and that's where the tool has evolved.
It's almost an ongoing focus group that you have at your disposal to be able to give a mirror to yourself. Again, you know, we've got the crazies out there. They go all caps and they start swinging their bag of cats around everywhere. But that's marginal. Point is that if you have the channels open for people to review, and on top of it, if you're asking already in your customer engagement, then you're getting good contribution. And it used to be that the only people that would be reviewing, by and large, would be the negatives. Well, best practices to be able to ask of those reviews after a successful transaction, whatever it is, that's getting more of the norm. We're seeing a lot of really cool tools out there to be able to cultivate that easily. But people are, by and large, more apt now, say maybe 5 years ago, to actually provide positive reviews from just the digital savviness. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so I've consistently surveyed consumers to their willingness to, I asked the question, how frequently do you review a local business? Never, less than once a year, 1 to 5 times a year, more than 5 times a year. Mm-hmm. And historically, when I started that survey, the nevers, the people who never wrote a review, dropped from 60% never wrote a review down to about 30% never wrote a review. Now, in this most recent survey, which I haven't published yet, that is leveling off, so it stopped dropping, but people are more inclined to review you. Mm-hmm. Historically, though, I would disagree with your characterization that it was just negative. Typically, third-party reviews have been extremely positive or negative. There's never been a lot in the middle, which is the value of you soliciting directly to your clients, as you get all the stuff in the middle. But you do see when you surveyed people why they left reviews, businesses would say they left reviews because they're going to leave a negative one. Consumers would say to help the business, help the neighbors, or to laud a really good business or criticize really bad. So consumers saw it more broadly than businesses. Businesses thought, oh my God, here comes another negative. Right. Here's an incoming.
Well, the businesses are in risk management in their panic mode because, everybody knows, there's a lineup of poor reactions from businesses to reviews that's create dead soldiers in the wake. I mean, there's a lot of horror stories out there. And I mean, brands by and large are still a bit gun shy getting into this real world engagement and being able to on top of that, embrace that negativity and learn and adjust their business model or their customer service by that.
Interestingly, we see surveys and research that indicates that consumers actually do business less with businesses that have a perfect 5-star review. Consumers are pretty savvy and typically focus on businesses in the 4.2 to 4.5 range is one issue. So consumers aren't as sort of draconian as many, as you point out, businesses in this sort of reactive mode think they are.
Is a 5-star good enough for our utilization now, or should we be expanding the segmentation to give a 1 through 10 rating to audiences?
Well, this is where we've decided to implement machine learning, because even in a 5-star review, and you see it on Google too, Google sees reviews as data.
Right.
And so in Maps now, they actually segment reviews by topic. So you can go in and select them on topic, and that's done with natural language processing.
Okay.
And we've started doing something similar in our product. So even though there's only a 5-point scale in review world,
Got it.
we can understand where there are negative sentiments in a 4-star review or positive sentiments in a 2-star review. So the lack of scale doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to extract enough data. That being said, I'm a big believer in Net Promoter Score, which is an 11-point scale.
Oh, wow.
It goes from 0 to 11. And it's nice because it's sort of standardized across industries, so it allows you to compare yourself to others in your industry. So at the core of our system is Net Promoter Score as a metric.
Very good. No, I get what you're saying, but it's also I'm leery at machine learning being guided off of review content that is somewhat biased to a particular degree, positive and negative. That there's these little eddies of or gravity wells of content that aren't truly objective. They're a little bit skewed, and be able to have that type of categorization and ranking factors inside the lanes of 1 through 5.
Sure, and that's a good point about third-party reviews, and to some extent first-party reviews, where the business is asking the consumer for their own feedback directly.
Yep. We
We see much more candor, and we see a much greater willingness to review. And many more people are willing to give you direct feedback than are willing to go out to Google and create a public testament. So you get skewing more at Google than you do when you ask them directly. So I'm also a big fan of asking them directly, because you get a better data set. You also get review content that you can mark up in schema and put on your website.
There we
And with our tagging tools, you can actually segment that content so that you can put it on the appropriate selling pages. So in the case of Barbara Oliver, we can take all the content, all the review content, first and third party, about engagement rings, wedding and wedding rings, and put that on the wedding ring page.
Right.
So it's a great content strategy as well, and which I see as really, one of the many powers of reviews, to go beyond just the issue of ranking or whatever.
Can I ask a technical point on that? I know you don't want to get you love the strategy, not the tactical, but from the local, from that schema implementation, you should not be manufacturing your own reviews. You should allow an entire channel of reviews to populate on your site, so you can actually leverage that schema deployment, right?
Correct. Google's rules are quite clear. They've never enforced them, but it's quite clear it has to be original content directly from the user. You should not be marking up Google reviews, putting on your site.
Right.
It should be direct from the user to the business. Those are the ones that you are eligible to mark up.
So you should really have a discipline as much as you're actually asking for reviews on GMB as well as Facebook and Yelp or what have you. You should also have part of your portfolio of reviews a direct solicitation to review on our website on this product, and that will not make its way anywhere else in the ecosystem except for that particular destination page, right?
Correct. Well, it might be on your website on the reviews page and the destination page, both. But yes.
All right. Very good.
I see first-party reviews as of equal importance over time, because not only does it increase conversions in the search, it increases social proof on your website.
Yep.
It also increases the adjectives and attributes that Google can read about your business. So it has a far-reaching benefit across the board.
No, it's very valuable, and it demonstrates such a level of authenticity and transparency on behalf of the brand to its prospect customers as well.
Right, and given that consumers prefer reviews in the 4.1 to 4.5 range, there's no reason not to be transparent for most businesses.
There's still going to be that factor, that faction that don't even want to jump in this. But that's where the wheat separates from the chaff now, is that businesses that are looking to be able to have that new media engagement, they've got to jump into the review space, the citation space, and you've got to be able to embrace the off-site communications and be able to also authentically communicate back to customers if there is a problem. Would you give any advice to small, medium-sized businesses that maybe have a brand issue that they're struggling with, how they should behave online, for lack of a better description?
Sure. Obviously, making promises about the future improvement to the brand can backfire on you, because if you don't in fact improve and you say you're going to, that's probably worse. So the first step is assess this, but I think responding to them and engaging these people, and even to the point of giving them a small gift for their trouble of writing the review, of the trouble of having had a bad experience with you, to me, that's entirely appropriate in response to a review. Is if you're having reputation problems, it's, geez, we're sorry this happened. Here's a gift certificate against your next purchase, or whatever. Obviously, responding to them, I think, is the first step. A lot of businesses haven't built out the infrastructure to do that.
Right.
I think it's critical. And we see research that shows that responding to reviews, one, decreases the number of negative reviews because people realize you're watching, and two, increases income. So there's both a monetary and a social reason for responding beyond just the fact that it makes sense that if somebody's willing to take the time to give you a review, you got to be courteous enough to respond to them.
So again, the business has to be ready to be able to respond quickly. Responses that happen weeks after, as opposed to within days. That's a brand signal as well, let alone months after. I mean,
I did some research on that. What
cool.
did consumers expect in terms of speed at which they responded?
Unpack that.
And surprisingly, most people had very low expectations. I think 60% were okay if it responded within a week. Maybe 40% expected it within 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And something like that. So if you respond within 24 hours, you are better than 95 or 98% of the firms in this world, and you will achieve benefit from it. So I agree with you that a timely response is valuable. And I think it's hard, but I think every review deserves a response. And I also asked people that, right? And they said, look, I took the time about 35% said, look, I took the time to write a review. I think they should respond. So while not a majority, it was still a significant group of people that expected you to respond whether the review was negative or positive.
All right, well, let me unpack that one more step further regarding the response to the negative review, because that's where the briar patch is. And what would you recommend from best practices to respond? I mean, there's all the strata of different reactions, but if somebody's hot-blooded, right, and we've seen it before, is that all of a sudden they're now, a particular reviewer is now empowered and they're starting to graffiti all of the different review platforms. What do you do with someone like that that's just out of the box, just trying to put some blemishes on that brand, to say the least? But they're all. I mean, do you respond in a way that is? I mean, well, I'll let you handle it. You tell me.
Sure. So firstly, I think you want to have a review plan in place so that you build up your review corpus, so any one bad review isn't the death knell.
Sure.
Right. But so if you've got 30 or 40 good reviews, one bad one actually is probably to your benefit. Also, you need to realize you have to change your attitude a little bit, that legitimate negative reviews are good qualifiers. They help you call out inappropriate customers. So, but in terms of the review, you need to be empathetic. You need to be responsive. You don't necessarily need to kowtow. I mean, if the customer's wrong, the customer's wrong. You just have to figure out a gentle way of telling them. And I think sometimes that's the best response. I mean, Barbara Oliver is my pet client. I frequently talk about her. She's got a stellar reputation. She did finally get a negative review at Yelp where the person said, oh, she was cheating me on the appraisal. And Barbara responded, look, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I appraised you based on this standard and this standard and this standard, and here's why I gave you the appraisal. And I apologize that you're unhappy, but this is reality. So sometimes that's the best way. Other times it's just being empathetic. Other times it's empathetic and attempting to further solve the problem or understand the problem. One of the things that I do with GatherUp, I personally have taken charge of responding reviews because I want to see what it takes. I respond to every review personally at GatherUp because I want to understand what people are thinking and pursue it as an active exercise for the company so that we can all benefit from it. So part of it is distancing yourself from the pain, which is hard. And the other part is being empathetic, being responsive, and engaging that consumer at whatever level you can. Now, sometimes there are true nutcases, and you don't want to get in a flame war with them, and sometimes that you just need to ignore them. But like I said, if you've got a good corpus of reviews, it's not going to impact you that much at all. It may be beneficial.
Oh yeah, and when you're responding to these positive reviewers, you're creating such a tribe of loyalists in the space that it's not only just about conversion, it's advocacy. And I mean, just people love to be lifted up whenever they're championing a brand, and to be able to be recognized. My gosh, you have a lifelong advocate for your brand, right?
Right. And both our software and Google send the owner response back to the user. So you're creating one more communication channel with that user, which I think is really, like you said, a very positive feedback for brand advocates, as well as people who are critical, because it shows that you care. So the act of engaging is what's important, I think, with integrity, honesty, and empathy. That's the answer. And it's not the same in every situation.
No, I appreciate those thoughts on response, because brands by and large have no idea to get into those waters, because they're not the conventional consumer that they're dealing with. These people know they have a voice, and they know that they have a power. I mean, this is the buyer's platform now, the buyer's realm, where they can control a brand's value, and they know where they stand in the ecosystem with Google now. So got to take care of that type of engagement. But let me ask you about your takes on the local platform itself and the 3-pack. We now have local ads that are in this space. Now they're starting to crop up here or there. The maps have been sacrosanct. They've been this go-to place of utilitarianism. Okay, this is the transaction. I want this, right? The local pack that came from, what did we have, 10 or 7 at one point in time, down to
10,
3. Yeah,
10, then 7, then 3.
Yep. Yeah. So it's been down to 1 sometimes. There has been this area of truth that's inside that, and a trusted factor, especially with Google My Business and the local pack, now is getting monetized, and it's the user doesn't know that it's connected to the AdWords platform. Do you think that Google's making a mistake, or it's an advantage for a local business to be able to have that advertising in that space? What's your takes on that?
Well, it breaks out a little bit by industry. So in super high spammy industries like locksmiths, plumbers, garage door openers, Google produced a special AdWords unit called Local Service Ads, where they actually theoretically vet the businesses before they can get advertised. They appear above the pack, and then Google guarantees those results. So some of the ads are like that. Also, Google is showing ads more and more in Maps, both sponsored pins and ads. And we're seeing in some industries, particularly like jewelry and restaurants, we're seeing a lot more activity in Maps than we used to see. And then there's the pack itself. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's the reality. Google is a publicly held company with a demand to ever increase their profits. Right. And there will be no surface untouched going forward. That's just the reality. Now, you have to build your marketing plan around it, right? You can bemoan it all day long, but if you bemoan everything you think Google does is stupid, you'd end up having to have to either commit suicide or switch industries, right?
Or just go to DuckDuckGo.
There you go. Well, I'm saying as a marketer, right?
Exactly.
Back to the story is like, what? Look, if you get frustrated every time Google changes things,
right?
The best you can do is try to understand what they're doing now. Build a marketing plan that's sustainable regardless of those changes, and be flexible when a change hits that you didn't anticipate, and lean into it. What are you going to, if they're still delivering those leads that we talked about at the beginning?
Bang.
Right? You you have to live with it, and that's the reality of the relationship. I think it was in Matilda where Danny DeVito said to the little girl, "I'm big, you're little. I'm right, you're wrong." That's the relationship we have with Google.
That's awesome. Actually, we've seen some really good results with the local services ads in comparison to cost per acquisition in the local advertising. We're seeing incredible, drastic reduction of cost per acquisition, and it's a fantastic tool set in those particular industries. Have you experimented with that particular ad medium?
I don't have firstly, I don't do a lot of direct local SEO anymore. I do some with 5 or 6 clients just to keep my finger in the pie, as it were. I've never had many people. I walked away from the locksmith, garage door opener, and plumbing world long ago because I realized you couldn't tell. It was hard to tell the good guys from the bad guys.
You better believe it.
And so I sort of walked away from it. So I do not, but I do follow the reporting on it. And it's a super simple ad format.
Yep.
You can self-provision fairly easily, turn it on and off quickly. It's fixed price. You know what's going to cost you to get a lead. It's very powerful. But what we are seeing is Google's rolling it out to more verticals. In San Diego, they're currently testing it, I think, with lawyers and perhaps real estate agents at the moment. So you can expect to see the format in more verticals.
And they have it's not a Google guaranteed, it's a Google certified. What was it? It's not that.
I can't remember the phrase, but it was
something like that.
Yeah. So, it wasn't guaranteed. It was just that they had indicated that they had vetted them to some extent.
Right. So, I mean, again, they're changing up the environment all the time.
And that's one of the things you see with Google is that they will be monetizing on a per industry space and transactionalizing at a category level that what spa and health facility and gym needs is different than what a restaurant needs, or different from what a lawyer needs, or different from what a propane dealer needs. So in each of those, they will be rolling out transactional capabilities that are and ad formats that are specific to those verticals.
I wanted to wrap up our conversation. I truly appreciate your time here and sharing a wealth of information here. What's your predictions, if you have any, on regarding the business profile of in Google My Business and local search? What do you think is going to be happening here? Because we're certainly seeing a lot of changes here, even over the last year inside of the local listings. What are your thoughts about what's going to happen here soon?
Well, Google has said that they want to help people get things done. When you look at that from a practical viewpoint, you're seeing it already. It's not going to be a surprise. You're seeing an ever-increasing number of transactional capabilities in the business profile. That's one. Two, they said this 2 or 3 years ago, they wanted to create more immersive experiences, provide better answers. So you're seeing Google building more and more back-end tools to either process these transactions or to provide this greater depth. You see it in the travel, you see it in all these industries. So you're going to see ever-increasing number of back-end tools to keep people on Google. Big surprise. You're going to see ever-increasing number of transactional type of capabilities. Big surprise. And you're going to see verticalized ads, increasing number. Big surprise. So, to me, it's not so much about predicting the future as saying what they say they're going to do. They typically do. And watching that develop carefully, you'll see clear indications that this is where it's going. They would just as soon, if you look at the mobile brand results now, it looks like a little mini website. It's got the about page and a review page and a product page and a service page and a contact us button and, all those things. So that's the trend, and you're going to see more and more of that. And they're going to be adding more and more things into that knowledge panel. To make it ever more useful. I don't think that requires too much future thinking to see that happening.
No, you're absolutely right. However, you did catch something here just recently, and that's the event. You talk about immersive search experience. The event listings. I was actually doing some research on Chicago Chamber of Commerce here just recently, and Google's got a great event listing there, but it's an endless loop. It doesn't take you anywhere. It's constantly cycling, and it brings you right back to the business profile. Did somebody not get the memo there?
It's one of the worst user interfaces I've ever seen. I don't quite get why they're doing it. I assume that it's temporary pending some more intelligent development, but it sure is dumb.
It is. I mean, okay, yes, I want this event. Please take me there.
Right.
Oh.
It does point out, though, why business. I mean, part of the problem with that you mentioned with SeaWorld was that they don't control their own events quite enough, and they need more events showing more frequently to sort of block out sort of third-party events that might show there. Obviously, if you're an activist, you want to be aware that a meetup event or an Eventbrite event could very well show on the knowledge panel of the place you're protesting. So I think it's an interesting sort of democratization of marketing.
Oh my! I just thought about a whole other experiment of faux events to be able to cloud the lineup there.
Tim Capper did it on 10 Downing Street. He actually added an event to his website to see if Google would pick it up and add it to the business profile, and they did.
Oh my gosh!
So.
That's awesome. Mike, I certainly want to, again, thank you for, I got one last question. I got a couple questions.
Sure.
All right. What are your thoughts, and you don't have to answer this, but what are your thoughts about platforms like Yext?
Well, Yext is, I mean, there's two aspects to Yext. One is citation distribution. The other is enhancing the data in meaningful ways to deliver to Google and deliver elsewhere. I mean, Yext is useful if a company doesn't have a way to have a canonical list of all their locations. Yext forces them into that discipline. But in terms of their citation distribution, it's like having citations distributed to 47 websites that nobody goes to. That's pretty bogus. But again, providing a single way to update Google and Yelp in a single environment and have a canonical listing might be valuable for larger companies. For smaller companies, I see it as, paying a retainer monthly to Yext to do citations is not worth it. You're better off going to Whitespark, having them one and done, and being out from under the monthly retainer if you're a single location. So I see Yext working reasonably well for larger companies that are looking to maybe build a location page from this data, looking to be sure to have a canonical source of the data because they're not able to do that internally. But in terms of the distribution of the citations, that was gagging me. Doesn't do much good.
Tell me what you really feel, Mike.
Sure. Ask me another question. I'll be glad to.
All right. Well, then I'll tee it up to you. What really bugs you about your industry right now?
Well, there's two things. One is the extreme, and this goes through all the conversations, the extreme focus on the tactical trick of the day, whatever that might be, as opposed to the bigger, what I think will be a more valuable, bigger focus on the whole marketing picture and helping tell the brand story more effectively. I think that's a better sort of framework with which to view the things in our business so you don't get so sidetracked by getting one more Google review or a certain structure to a citation or worrying about the change in the rank results quite that much.
Right.
And the other is Google themselves. Local is a hyper-local experience. You're sitting there with a phone and Google is showing you results for maybe 3/4 of a mile around your phone. And yet when they analyze their results and they say, only 0.5 of 1% ever saw a spammy listing, it's horseshit. And the reason is that they're looking at it from the point of view of churches and, you don't see many spammy church listings. That's true. But when they put all that together, meanwhile, if you're sitting in a city in Canada and you type in certified locksmith, you're going to see nothing but spam. So spam is a very localized thing. It's very long tail. And Google has not been willing to invest the engineering resources or their financial resources to deal with the danger that puts to other businesses and consumers. I mean, imagine bringing somebody into your home that you found on Google for locksmiths and it's a scam listing, sending a scam locksmith who's going to bait and switch you to who knows how many hundreds of dollars, and could be, if he's not properly vetted, could be a criminal. It's
absolutely.
It's irresponsible on part of Google to do that.
Well, hopefully we're going to be seeing that kind of pan itself out, as we've seen in other areas of SEO, is being able to marginalize those spammers. But they're certainly exploiting the space right now, aren't they?
In those in certain local markets and certain local searches, they certainly are, and they've done it at scale. Right, a lot of these spam listings will go back to a call center, who will then figure out who bought the lead for that area, who's available, and they'll distribute it. So it's a profit making enterprise that hurts the businesses that try to compete honestly, and I think it's a threat to the consuming public. And Google has not done enough to stop it.
All right, hear that, Google? We need you to police that a little bit more. So conversely, Mike, last question. What excites you about this industry?
Everything. Jesus. It's like I can't go a day without reading 20 articles. I mean, what excites me is the opportunities businesses have to when I say we live in a post-Amazon economy, what I mean by that is saying that, Amazon has sort of solved the problems of product availability and deliverability and returns, and local businesses can no longer compete on that. But what Google has done in terms of surfacing reputation is they've given businesses an opportunity to be seen and to improve themselves simultaneously. So what excites me is the fact that businesses are getting the memo and starting to create experiences that go beyond product delivery and timeliness into the area of making joy for their customers. And when businesses can do that, I get really excited. So, and I think that's how we view our product, is to try to help businesses deliver the joy to their customers. And that's where I think businesses need to be to succeed these days.
Absolutely, or you'll be out of business very soon, because the online customer is expecting that now. They're expecting that type of responsiveness, engagement, and quality of service, because it's all kind of out there, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. Well, I had to swing back around to the thought here. You actually came down from a mountain to to help us in digital marketing. Can we throw out the acronym of or the reference of the Moses of local search? What's all the deal about the mountain? You were actually doing a heck of a lot of natural training up there, weren't you?
So from 1972 to 1989, I was an instructor at National Outdoor Leadership School, which is a program that trains people in wilderness living skills. I helped plan, execute, and deliver trainings in East Africa, Wyoming, and Prince William Sound for a number of years.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So if we do have to go off the grid, come see you. Yep.
Well, expeditioning is not quite going off the grid. It's learning how to live safely for some limited period of time in the wilderness. So it means cooking, carrying your food, learning how to navigate, doing first aid, things that are not necessarily totally off the grid. I mean, but things that do require a special skill set. Yeah.
We some parents and I, we just led our Boy Scout troop to go through an outdoor survival training course, very similar, probably a monicum of what you probably do, but it's great to be able to teach those young people these basic but very, very important skills of just self-preservation and making sure that they can rely upon themselves. So,
and even beyond self-preservation, though, is this question of joy, is being comfortable enough that when you're out there, you can experience it in all of its amazing glory. I mean, having a humpback whale come up next to your kayak.
Oh, wow.
Or sliding down a huge glacier to a soft landing at the end. Oh, wow. Those are joyous experiences. And so part of it is learning the survival skills so that you can be comfortable and navigate safely and avoid the biggest risks so that you can experience the tremendous joy.
See that? Everybody should unplug a little bit and go outside. Come on. It'll be there tomorrow. Go have some joy outside. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. It certainly is a pleasure, and we wish you all the best. And we'd love to have you back on the show again, talking more about local search. But we certainly want to promote Local U and the Local U podcast. So where can we find that?
So localu.org. You can sign up for the podcast there. It's also on iTunes and Android and Stitch.
Sweet. And on top of that, join go and subscribe to your email newsletter as well, because you're certainly revealing great nuggets of gold here regularly in the local space. So any final word for our digital marketing audience today?
The word is understand the current reality so you don't have to stress about the future. translate that into improved strategies so you don't have to stress about the tactics and help your businesses be better, that would be it.
That'll be it. That's plenty. Thank you so much. We'll certainly want to have our audience track you down on Twitter and Blumenthal over on LinkedIn and Blumenthal, and no Instagram, huh?
No Instagram.
More power to you.
No Instagram, and I'm not very active on Facebook. So
Roger that. Well,
it's Twitter, or one of the sites I write in.
All right, and you're certainly contributing into the ecosystem regularly. Where are you going to be speaking next?
So Local U has an advanced training in Denver, September 19th. Mm-hmm. And then October 8th, we're doing a small business training in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. October 12th, I'm speaking to Duct Tape in Savannah. And I have a few others lined up, but those are the ones that...
Cool. Well, thank you so much. We're certainly going to give all the, in the show notes, we're going to have all the links to those events as well. Thanks so much for participating today, and truly is a pleasure. Thanks
for having me. I'm always willing to come back.
All right, you're more than welcome. Thanks for listening to Edge of the Web Radio. Special thank you to our colleagues at Site Strategics for production each and every week. Thank you, obviously, to our guest, Mike Blumenthal. Make sure to check out all the must-see videos and audio and information over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. That's it for this week. We're going to be talking to, hey, Jacob, who are we talking to next week? Joe Martinez? Yes. See? Put you on the spot there. Joe Martinez is going to be talking about, I believe, Quora again and advertising in Quora. So check us out next week. For all of us over at Edge of the Web, do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.